If you could pick one Georgia running back in the last 23 years for one full season to stay healthy, who are you picking? Now, I think there are three options, right? They're easy options. It's Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, and Sony Michel. I think it's going to come down to Todd Gurley and Nick Chubb, but if you want to say Sony Michel in 2017, I totally get it, and I think you have a real argument. But in my opinion, nobody is better than Todd Gurley in 2014. I mean, the guy was the best player in college football. I know Marcus Mariota won the Heisman, but what Todd Gurley did against Clemson and Tennessee that year is two of the best performances I've ever seen from any running back with my own eyes. And I mean, those two performances are up there with what Herschel Walker did in the 80s. I mean, he just dominated. And as good as Nick Chubb was, we saw him just dominate teams left and right as well, not only as a freshman, but, throughout his career at Georgia. I think Todd Gurley, especially in 2014, was the most talented running back we've seen since Herschel Walker. And again, I'd probably put him right up there. I want to talk about Todd real quick before I do a deep dive into Nick Chubb and Sony Michel and what they brought to the table. But I've said this for a while. Todd Gurley could have been one of the few guys who could have gone straight from high school to the NFL. What he did in 2012 as a freshman, dude was the best player on the field. And even from that first game against Buffalo, when he took that kick return at about 100 yards back to the house in 100-degree heat, you knew something special was about to happen for him in his career. He was just different. He was the best player on the field as a freshman. He ran through Alabama's defense in that 2012 SEC championship game. He would have made an NFL roster if he decided to go straight to the NFL instead of enrolling at Georgia. 2012, Todd Gurley makes an NFL team, maybe not as a starter. He's not rushing for 1,000 yards in the NFL, but he's making an impact as a backup running back in the NFL at 18 years old. And I think you can make the case for Nick Chubb as well. In 2014, his freshman year, of course, Todd had the suspension halfway through the season. He came back against Auburn, had a great game, and then tore his ACL. So Nick Chubb was really the guy, had one of the best single seasons of any running back in Georgia football history in 2014. Rushed for over 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns. He probably makes an NFL roster too in 2014, but he got better and better. But what Sony Michel did in 2017, he was better than Nick Chubb that year, in my opinion, especially in those three final games of the season. SEC championship game against Auburn, obviously the Rose Bowl, he had one of the best Rose Bowl performances ever. And then that national championship game, if they feed Sony a little bit more, who knows, they might have beaten Alabama that year. So are you taking Todd Gurley in 2014? Are you taking Nick Chubb in 2014 or 2017? Or is it Sony Michel in 2017? Those, I think, have to be the answer if you're going through this. Now, I'm going to talk about this more because, talking about Georgia running backs, you could go on and on and on. But I think, in my opinion, Todd Gurley is number one, best Georgia running back since, we're going to just go to 2000s, right? Then Nick Chubb, then Sony Michel. And then the debate is on, right? At number 4, you have to have Knowshon Moreno. I mean, the fire, the intensity, what he brought to the table, I don't think we've seen since Knowshon Moreno. The energy that he brought was so fun to watch, man. That guy was spinning out of tackles, breaking tackles left and right. What he did against the Gators in 2007, I think 188 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. That was a performance for the ages and one of the best running back performances in Georgia football history. Georgia needed that win. Knowshon Moreno was unbelievable. Coming out party. It wasn't against Arizona State. That was his second year. But dude had Heisman, talk surrounding him after that 2017 season going into 2018 with Matthew Stafford. But Knowshon Moreno had over 1,300 yards in 2007. Should have played in 2006, but in 2007, had over 1,300 yards, just one of the best players in college football. In 2008, Georgia took a step back. They were not the number one team in the country, even though they were preseason. He had 1,400 yards. Knowshon Moreno was legit. And for a lot of you younger Georgia fans who don't fully remember what he brought to the table, he was as fun to watch as any running back in college football back then. So he's my number 4. That guy was unbelievable. Number 5, I have DeAndre Swift. He was incredible as well. That speed, explosiveness that he brought to the table was a great, backup third option in 2017, 2018. Just running through teams. I mean, he was a touchdown. He could score a touchdown from anywhere on the field. Just ask Kentucky. Kentucky had trouble tackling that dude every single year, but he had some big runs too. I mean, SEC title game in 2017 when he took off. At that point, that was one of the biggest runs in Georgia football history, no doubt about it. As far as talent goes and production, especially in 2018 and 2019 when he was kind of the guy after Nick and Sony left, I think he would be number 5 on my list as far as the best running backs over the last 23 years. James Cook, I would have, I guess, at number 6. His ability to catch the football is a big deal here. His run against Alabama in the 21 title game is, to this day, or I say to this day, like it happened 50 years ago, but it's up there as one of the most important rushes in Georgia football history. Flipping the field, flipping the momentum after the Jalen Carter block kick. Georgia would go on to score a touchdown on that drive. That was a big-time, game-changing momentum play. James Cook was legit, and I do have him above Zamir White. Another guy I have above Zamir White is Thomas Brown. Love Thomas Brown, 2004 to 2007. Consistent, tough, hard-nosed running back, one of the strongest guys pound for pound on the team every single year. Was a 4-star in that 2004 class. Led the team in rushing in 2004 and 2005, I believe. I think he was hurt in 2006, 2007. Was really Noshawn's year, but Thomas Brown, had a solid year kind of as that number 2 back behind Noshawn Marino. But I love Thomas Brown. He's one of the more underrated, more forgotten about running backs that has come along in recent memory. And again, if you younger fans may not remember how good Thomas Brown was at times. He wasn't the biggest. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the most talented, but he was productive. He loved Georgia and was always there to give them a big run when he needed it. So I love Thomas Brown. Maybe I have him too high. Again, I have him at number 7, it looks like. But I love Thomas Brown, always will. Zamir White comes in at number 8 for me. The story, right? Big time 5-star guy, had the injuries early on in his career, but just battled. He fought back. He broke a lot of tackles, scored a touchdown against Alabama in the 2021 national championship game. So he'll be remembered for that. But had some big runs against the Gators. I don't have his numbers up in front of me right now. I'm trying to do this all based on memory, but I did have a couple of Nick and Todd's and Sony's just for to explain them, because that's what I guess I made this video about early on. Which would you rather have? That was my first idea for the video. Is it Todd Gurley? Is it Nick Chubb? But of course you have to throw Sony Michel in there as well, especially in that final year. But going back to Zamir White, he should be remembered as one of the best Bulldogs of his generation. And he had some really tough runs and broke a lot of tackles, would get you 4 yards on a big 3rd and 3. He'd give you 5 yards on a big 3rd and 4. Around the goal line, he was phenomenal and broke a lot of tackles and turned into the running back that we thought we'd see out of high school. I don't know if the speed was ever there or it's just the electricity that he ran with. Dean will tell you that Zamir White's the best high school football player he's ever seen, and that was before 2 major knee injuries. I don't think we really ever saw that same Zamir White again. As good as he was at Georgia, the speed wasn't there that he had in high school. The burst, right? I just don't think was there, but still a really good running back. Kenny McIntosh comes in. I guess this is at number 9. The guy made some really big plays when it mattered most. The last 2 years, right? Against Ohio State, he had some key runs. Against Alabama, he caught a big pass late in that ball game when Georgia needed it most. But against Tennessee this past year, the dude was just a slasher. He was so tough to tackle, and he could also catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. He was versatile, and I hope Georgia fans remember what he did. He may not have lit up the stat sheet like a few guys that I have him ranked in front of me, but he should be remembered. He's a 2-time national champion. He needs to be on this list. He did a lot for this program. Coming in as a mid 4-star guy. I think a lot of Georgia fans look past him a little bit because he wasn't this big time 5-star, but he scored a lot of touchdowns and he caught a lot of passes out of the backfield, brought some versatility, helped open up the offense a little bit. I think he's, a top 10 Bulldog and, running back in the last 23 years. And then have to have Musa Smith on this list. I mean, what he did in 2002, one of the best Georgia teams of all time, had over 1,300 rushing yards, was great against Arkansas in that 2002 SEC championship game. If you don't remember that season, again, if you're a younger Georgia fan and you've just heard about that great 2002 team, Musa Smith was a bowling ball. Loved that guy. Loved watching him run. So tough to tackle in the upper body, lower body. He was excellent in 2002. That's the reason he's on this list. So yeah, Todd, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Noshawn Marino, DeAndre Swift, James Cook, Thomas Brown, Zamir White, Kenny McIntosh, Musa Smith. That's my 10. Honorable mention, Elijah Holyfield. He had 1,000 yards rushing in 2008. I do have some more stats that I forgot I had, right here for a few guys. But Elijah Holyfield was definitely, had his moments. Keith Marshall had some injuries, but he was great in 2014. Remember Gershel? Or actually 2012 was when he came in, 2012. Yeah, Gershel was cool for like 2 weeks, and then they both, were like, no, we don't like this at all. I mean, Herschel was his own guy. I'm Todd Gurley. I'm Keith Marshall. So, yeah, that was cute for a couple weeks, I guess. But if he could have stayed healthy, we could have seen a lot more of Keith Marshall. Bron Haynes early in 2000s had his moments. Craig Lumpkin, 5-star running back in 2003. He had his moments as well. I don't think ever turned into the 5-star running back people thought he was going to. Then Isaiah Crowell, right? Almost 1,000 yards, and really the only season they needed him in is 2011. It had some of those, I don't want to go into it because the charges were dropped, yada, yada, yada. But he kind of got hurt, if I remember correctly, against Kentucky late in that 2011 season, or he would have gone over 1,000 yards. But at the end of the day, that's all Georgia needed him for, because the next year Todd Gurley comes in and Keith Marshall comes in, and they ran all over everyone. They didn't need Isaiah Crowell, but just a little honorable mention because Isaiah Crowell was so talented and was so important for Mark Richt to land in that 2011 class and went on to have a nice little NFL career. I mean, the talent was always there. Just didn't see a lot of it at Georgia, but again, he had that 1 year. So, am I wrong? Am I right? Did I leave anyone off? Who are your top 10 Bulldogs in the last, since 2000? Would you take Nick Chubb's peak over Todd Gurley's peak? Would you take Sony Michel at his peak in 2017 over Todd Gurley and Nick Chubb? Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching this video. As always, stay tuned to the next one coming up right now, and I will see you over on Dawg Post.